in California. They've issued a warrant for the arrest of 25-year-old Andrew Manuel, alias Richard Diaz, for the theft of a house trailer. Police say Manuel and John Collins, the man arrested last week for the murder of the latest co-ed victim, traveled to California in the trailer in June. When we think of prisons, if we bother to think of them at all, that is, there is a tendency to see them as institutions completely divorced from human society, little worlds of their own. But prisons and their inmates are subject to some of the same stresses and strains as the outside world, as Terry Drinkwater reports from San Quentin State Prison in California.
The guards at San Quentin have their own way of describing the mood of the inmates. They call it the climate on the inside. And this summer, the climate is hot. 1 white and 2 black prisoners have been killed. 14 inmates have been stabbed. And even moderate convict leaders concede the situation has sometimes become a race war.
It used to be a certain group against another group, you know, the Nazis against the Muslims. But now it's a black face against a white face, and everyone is a target.
Now, if you're a black man, it don't make any difference what clique you belong to. As long as you're black, you're going to get hit. If you're a white man, it don't make any difference what your age or what clique, you're going to get hit.
Even though San Quentin is a maximum security prison, the inmates are very much influenced by society on the outside and the racial tension that is there. 1/3 of the inmates are black. Many call themselves Panthers or Mau Mau. But white convicts have underground organizations of their own, too. They call themselves Nazis or Ku Klux Klan, and many regard the blacks with open contempt. Listen to the voice of one white convict.
I see a guy with a natural, and he's talking about black is beautiful, and he's sitting there watching TV, and a white woman comes on, and I hear these remarks that he makes about her, you know, what he would like to do with her, you know, and I see the same old gutter nigger, so to say, you know, from the street.
But blacks at San Quentin are angry also. One told us that for every black man who is murdered in the prison, 2 or 3 white convicts will be killed.
And they're going to have to understand that because all of us is dead, you know, if it has to come to that.
Warden, what are the basic reasons for the racial trouble and the killings? What are the fundamental causes of it?
Well, just at this point, we are reflecting more acutely, probably, many of the attitudes and prejudices of people on the street. Only in an institution of this kind, the people that we have contained herein are more likely to act out their prejudices rather than to talk them out. And they're more likely to, instead of saying somebody's a no-goodnik, they're likely to take up a piece of steel and try to do him in. And so we are, in fact, I guess, reflecting the polarization of the races, which appears to me to be taking place on the outside.
There are some other reasons for all the tension at San Quentin. Overcrowding, 2 men living in cells designed originally for just 1. Many were transferred to San Quentin after getting into racial trouble elsewhere. But some accuse the prison guards of stirring up the race trouble, of sneaking in narcotics and weapons.
The police officers that work here bring their prejudice in from the street. The same guy that brings in dope, that will bring in any other thing, was the same guy that will bring in knives and supply it with other side and keep this stuff going.
If you can live together, you live together, but when you got bulls telling you, get this black when it gets down, or another bull telling the blacks, get this white when you get down, you can't stop nothing.
Talking about guards.
I'm talking about guards, yeah, bulls, yeah.
Prison officials point out, though, that most of the weapons confiscated from convicts are crude but effective devices, improvised within the prison. Yet Warden Lewis Nelson is concerned that some guards might be stirring up trouble with thoughtless remarks and racial slurs. He warned them it could boomerang.
I would hope that we don't have anybody on the staff who feel this way, because I pointed out to the third watch, there's this much danger for everybody involved. If this thing blossoms out into a full-blown racial war, if it does, and they're talk that it will. I've got some letters in here that said, you're not going to keep us from it, Warden, no matter how you go. So we're going to get this thing down, we're going to resolve it here. If it comes down to that, remember, you are either black or white, as the case may be. And you may be marked for extinction because this war might of necessity have to be escalated. Now, in my work, I've seen 10 members of the staff lay with their blood flowing out of them. I don't want to see any more. so is a favor to your wife. You ought to be circumspect enough in your character so you won't be likely to be a target for this sort of uprising should one occur.
In an attempt to ease the racial tension, the warden has met with both black and white prisoners. One of the sessions was bitter, the inmates accusing the warden of depriving them of what used to be routine privileges after the violence had subsided. They felt they were double-crossed. But the warden's prudence seems to have been justified because the incidents continue. Even now, the warden's approach remains moderate, yet there's no certainty that reason and mediation will work. But the warden feels it has to work.
Well, sooner or later, and hopefully sooner, the inmates will come to the realization that they've got to live together. We have had the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazis and the black militants sitting down together and talking. We have done better than they have in civilization on the outside, I believe. Failing that, we'll have a bloodbath.
The bloodbath, which Warden Nelson fears, is particularly disturbing because of something else he says. He believes his inmates are simply a microcosm of society on the outside. And he feels that what is happening now on the inside of his prison could well point towards even more violence and murder in the streets in the years to come. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, San Quentin.
Scientists at the Lunar Receiving Laboratory today began examining the second box of moon rock samples. Because of last week's accident that damaged the vacuum chamber, these specimens are being worked on in a chamber filled with dry nitrogen. Clinical examination of the first batch of mice injected with lunar dust also began today, but officials say a cursory examination showed no ill effects. Some 25 years ago, humorist H. Allen Smith created something of a national sensation when, as a reporter for United Press, he visited and wrote about a nudist colony.